Oh, hey guys, I know this may come to you as some surprise, but I'm mad right now, and with good reasons. I mean, look at this! What kind of channel named Scott the Was has more subscribers than me? I mean, Scott the Was, what even is that?
Sounds a bit like a terminal illness to me.
Not a bad analogy there, Jontron. But you're any better. I mean, what the hell is a Jontron? What are you, a robot or something?
Like your name is any better.
What? I mean, AC negative is a name. You may have gotten me there, but I'm still on the fence about this YouTube thing. I mean, look at this guy. What the hell is an orc and why is he a penguin? It's pretty obvious just by looking at my channel that I'm a big fan of the quote-unquote video game channels. You know the ones, your Scott the Waz's, AVGNs, PeanutButterGamers, Jontron, before we started talking about tape. I just love these channels and I wish they received more credit than they actually have. Now, to clarify, there's a difference between gaming channels and these video game channels. Gaming channels focus on playing the games through let's plays, walkthroughs, or speedruns, while video game channels focus less on actually playing the games and more on sharing their experiences with them. And if I'm being honest, I actually prefer these channels over video game channels. And I think one of the reasons why these channels aren't talked about that much is because they don't really have a name to call their own. Now, I've seen some people use the term video game comedy channels to refer to these type of channels, and you know, this kind of makes sense. A lot of these channels do use comedy as their main source of entertainment, but this doesn't work for all channels. While some of them do have comedy in them, that's not really their main focus. Another term I've seen people use for these channels are video game review channels, and I've never seen them like that. You see, IGN and GameSpot, they review video games, but someone like Somecallmejohnny or Antdude, I've always considered them to be sharing their thoughts on a game rather than downright reviewing it. So for the sake of simplicity and not to overcomplicate things, I'm going to simply be referring to these channels as video game commentary channels, because that's what they are at the end of the day. They are video game channels that give commentary on video games.
So that's really just all that video game commentary channels do? Then why doesn't AC become one?
He is a video game commentary channel, you dummy. What do you think he's been doing the whole time?
Oh, I just thought he was an idiot or something.
So now that I've gone over just exactly what these channels are, I should now state why I think they're so special. And that's why I've got 3 reasons to why I think these channels are special. And reason number 1 is... Yeah, I know I just said not all video game commentary channels are funny, but... who cares? When people generally think about these video game commentary channels, they usually think of, well, the funny ones. You know what I'm talking about? The ones that keep on swearing, the ones that keep on pulling funny faces, the ones that keep on shouting as if it's funny. For example...
Red Monster was Sonic the Hedgehog.
all freaking blue!
Make Sonic go fast and only make him go fast.
There's nothing, guys. There's nothing! Alex Kidd! Wow! FPSs suck! What the hell is an orc and why is he a penguin? These are generally the channels we first think about when the term video game commentary channel is brought up. But why exactly are all these channels like this? Well, it's probably because the first ever video game channel was like this. It's practically common knowledge at this point that the first ever video game channel to do this was the AVGN. James Rolfe came up with the brilliant idea of shouting, screaming, and making fun of video games, and this idea was a hit. The angry video name nerd became the most popular thing out there. And of course, like anything popular on the internet, there were bound to be copycats, and that's exactly what happened with the AVGN. Many people just tried copying his formula, and you know, some of them succeeded, but others fell right down the rabbit hole. But some people realized that they could do what the AVGN did, but do it in a more original way, and that's how we got some of the most popular gaming channels out there, like Jontron, PeanutButterGamer, and many more. These channels realized that people weren't necessarily just coming for the AVGN because of his humor and personality. The idea of talking in front of a camera and sharing your opinions of the video game was just so magical that any other person who did this was bound to see some success. But one idea from the AVGN that still remained to this day was the idea of comedy. People just loved using comedy in their videos, whether it was through funny skits or making funny jokes on a bad game. Probably one of the most successful of these channels was Scott the Was. Scott the Was just a random gaming channel that came out of nowhere, but once he reached popularity, he became a video game commentary channel icon. You see, Scott the Was focused less on shouting and screaming and swearing and more of just being funny. He tried his hardest to be funny without having to do elaborate skits like Jontron or crazy editing like PeanutButterGamer. He just tried his best to say something that was funny. coupled together with the fact that it took him an incredibly short time just to make a video, meant that we'll be seeing funny content from him pretty much every week. And I think that's why Scott the Was such an appealing channel, and why he's still an influence to many YouTubers to this day, and why he's still one of the most popular video game commentary channels out there, racking up millions of views a day. Now, obviously, Scott the Was isn't the only video game comedy channel out there that's successful, but he's definitely one of the main and one of the most important ones when it comes to talking about these type of channels. Yes, AVGN, PeanutButterGamer, and Jontron are still around, but they've certainly changed over the years, and they're definitely not the biggest channels nowadays. But their influences can still be seen to this day, and have shaped what video game comedy channels are now. I mean, these channels are the reasons to why I make videos talking about games. That's just how influential they are. These guys are definitely the highlight of the video game commentary channel community. But what about the rest of them? Well, that comes to my second point, which is... Like I've said, many channels decided to go the video game comedy route when it came to making their videos, but not everyone likes to do comedy. And that's where gimmicks come in. You see, gimmicks are the quote-unquote things that make these channels stand out, whether it's their choice of clothing, their choice of editing, their choice of presentation, whatever. Gimmicks are what make these channels stand out. But what exactly are good examples of these quote-unquote gimmick channels? Well, I've got quite a few to mention. The Gaming Historian is a good example of a channel that takes a look at video games but does their own thing. Instead of the Gaming Historian relying on comedy and skits, he simply talked about video game history, but still managed to do it in a fun and creative way even without the comedy. Video game design channels are also good examples of, again, video game channels that talk about video games but don't necessarily rely on comedy. And these guys are some of my favorite channels out there. I'm really interested in game design, so seeing these people talk about it is really entertaining to me. But again, not necessarily all video game design channels have to be unfunny. There are plenty of them that, again, talk about game design but presented in a more humorous way, and I appreciate that. You also get some video game channels that tend to focus on one specific game and go in depth about it. Some people like to call these channels review channels. Again, I've always seen them as more sharing their thoughts and going in depth on a game's design than just downright reviewing it. But what if you're interested in the game before it was made, i.e. prototypes and unseen content? Well, then you get TetraBitGaming and Beta64, channels that just do that. And there's still a whole bunch of these channels I haven't even talked about yet. I mean, the Completionist, he's a guy that completes games and talks about how he does that. A+Start, he talks about video game glitches. I've mentioned Beta64, talks about betas of video games. Caddicarus does theories on video games, and there's just so much more I haven't even mentioned yet. That's just scratching the surface. These channels are everywhere, and they're great. The last part of this video is just dedicated to me talking about some of the more smaller channels and how they have some great personalities. Personality is everything when it comes to YouTube. I mean, if you're not that interesting in general, then why bother trying to entertain people? I love video game channels. I really love them. They just have great personality, great editing, and they're just so fun to watch. And I enjoy the hard work they've done just to entertain people. And that's why they've inspired me to do YouTube. And that's why I've decided to dedicate the rest of the video to these amazing people and to all the amazing things they've done. that was video game commentary channels. And love them or hate them, they're there. And I think they're gonna be there for a while. And hey, that's not such a bad thing. But there's still one lingering question that I have in my head. What the hell is an orc and why is he a penguin?